We talked already about how the climate change impacts are affecting even the idea of uh, identifying wines from a certain region, because it depends on the local climate, local soil qualities, and the French are very particular about the domain name on their wines. And this is a related topic, but this is about how one person's loss can be another person's benefit, profit, whatever. Even in the US, as California keeps getting warmer and drier, vineyards have to plan where they will go in the future. Wine business is massive business, and French have been at it for centuries. They have very good data actually for several centuries, and they have very good sense of how things are changing, right? So UK has a rich history of winemaking as well, but with the end of the Little Ice Age, they ended up becoming much more beer makers. You identify UK with beers, and hardly, I don't think you will get too many wines from the UK, right? Even in Europe, France, of course, Italy, Germany, everybody seems to make, Portugal, Spain, everybody seems to make wine. So how climate change has helped vineyards in Britain thrive? Surprisingly, this is a nice long article in the Hindu, which is one of the major newspapers in India, by Smita Menon. I don't know if she's a reporter, she's a researcher, but either way I wanted to read it because she has done such a good job. Discover the rise of English wines from picturesque vineyards to award-winning bottles amidst a changing climate and growing acclaim. Growing acclaim is important because when new alcohol, whiskey, wine, etc., beer arrive into the market, reputation matters a lot for how much they can sell and how widely they can sell it across the world, etc. So this is Langham Winery. I love these sites. I love visiting vineyards and doing wine tasting and so on, the aging process in the oak barrels and so on. And here's another beautiful picture of the Langham Vineyard back in June 2024. I'm recording this in the first week of November 2024, so very recent article. Well, the article actually appeared just a few weeks ago, but the picture is from June. It's a blisteringly cold day when I arrive in North Devon's Saunton Sands Hotel, but its iconic location atop a cliff that overlooks the Saunton Islands beach, named one of the most picturesque beaches in the UK, tempts me to take a walk. She's a reporter, she's narrating a story, so I'm going to just read it. It's, may take a few minutes longer than necessary, but whatever. Invigorated by the cool breeze on my face and the symphony of the crashing waves, I make my way to the dining room to feast on a fleshy charred sea bass served atop a lemon brine risotto. It has been a week of travel, sightseeing and discovering the UK beyond London, but my great discovery, I realize at dinner, is the region's wine. So there she set the background, poetic prose. Sharpham's Dart Valley Reserve is a tart, peachy white wine with a rounded palate and just a hint of spice at the end. Well, this is the kind of language sommelier people use, and when you go tasting, they tell you to do it, swirl it, do all that, and explain in these words. But obviously, I'm not good at all that peachy, rounded palate, hint of spice at the end and so on. It pairs superbly with a fish and leads me down a delicious rabbit hole. For hundreds of years we have celebrated our special occasions by drinking French champagne and old world wines, but with vineyards now dotted across the hills in the UK, local wines are emerging as worthy contenders, explains Kelly Brand of the Brand Collection, the parent company of Saunton Sands, over dinner. The wine we are drinking, Sharpham's Dart Valley Reserve 2022, has won several awards, including a gold in the Sommelier Wine Awards in 2019. Sharpham wine has been using grapes from the vines at Sandridge Barton, located in Devon's Dart Valley, over 40 years. I learned from the sommelier that much of the vineyard is planted with Madeleine Angevine, a grape varietal originally from the Loire Valley, but which seems very happy in its South Devon home, where the grapes enjoy the mild, temperate coastal climate, right? Vineyards need certain temperatures, certain number of frost days for sweetening the grapes and all those good things. Here is the head winemaker Tommy Grimshaw in the winery. So Sharpham is not the only winemaker making wines while the sun shines. In recent decades, climate change has provided better growing conditions for grapes in England. Quality has improved, with wines from the UK winning prestigious awards as a result. Viticulture is now Britain's fastest growing agricultural sector, and the UK is planting vines more quickly than most of the world's biggest wine producing countries. According to an industry report by Wines of Great Britain, WineGB, wine production is expected to reach between 25 and 29 million bottles by 2032. You have to compare the numbers to other big wine producers like France or even Spain, Portugal, but anyway. Interestingly, Taittinger and Pommery, two of the France's best-known champagne houses, have recently bought land and planted vines in England, while the world's biggest sparkling wine company, Henkel Freixenet, acquired an English wine estate, Bolney, in 2022. And just last year, Jackson Family Wines, a multinational with interests in California, Bordeaux, South Africa, and Australia, confirmed plans to make a range of still and sparkling wines on British soil. So as warming latitudes keep expanding, tropics keep expanding, mid-latitude, temperate latitudes go towards the poles, winemakers have to move because France will get too warm and all the European countries may get too warm for good wine. Okay, so here is Langham's core range of wines. I won't read what they are, but what's climate change got to do with it? A Columbia Climate School study published in 2020 warned that a number of regions growing certain grapes will shrink by more than half if global temperatures rise by 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. So whatever the uncertainty in the projections, the French winemakers pay close attention because it's a risk for them and they must respond to this risk, plan to deal with it. Sometimes they can manage with irrigation changes or covers on wines, vineyards, etc. But sometimes they have to buy land to the north, right? This change in temperature causes grapes to mature too quickly, thus impacting the ratio of acidity to sugar, thereby changing the taste of a wine. Research published in the journal Enophile is one who loves wines, predicts that climate change will increasingly allow UK winemakers to grow varieties of grapes such as Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Riesling, Semillon, which have previously been extremely difficult and impossible to cultivate in the British climate. But it would be a fool's errand to attribute the fillip that English wines have seen of late to climate change alone. Let me read it again. But it would be a fool's errand to attribute the fillip that English wines have seen of late to climate change alone. The wines are wowing enthusiasts world over thanks to the efforts of enterprising winemakers in the region whose labor is now reaping great benefits. So sometimes there's a lot of marketing involved, and the Beaujolais of France is talked about this a lot in how a poor wine is sold with some great festival atmosphere and so on. The region is best known for its sparkling wines. Almost 3/4 of all wine produced in the UK is bubbly. At the prestigious Decanter World Wine Awards last year, 5 gold medals went to vineyards based in Hampshire. Candover Valley Wines, Brook Brut and V. Hambledon Vineyards Premier Cuvée Brut NV and Reims Classic Brut 2018. The other 2 sparkling wines to achieve gold were given to producers in Kent, Woodchurch Classic Brut 2017 and Chapel Downs Kitts County Cœur de Cuvée Extra Brut 2016. Cœur de Cuvée is heart of the, what is Cuvée? Let's figure it out. Several silver and bronze medals were awarded to viticulturalists in Cornwall, Staffordshire, Shropshire, and Essex, totaling the UK's wins to 143 medals, pitching it against some of the most famous winemaking countries. That's a big boost to the wine business, right? So here is British Airways is the only airline in the world to have a full-time master of wine on board. Okay, so there are grades, sommelier, master of wine. I don't know, you can go figure it out. British Airways master of wine Tim Jackson attributes this success to several factors. Firstly, we are planting the right grape varieties, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir and Meunier, the three champagne grape varieties. The second factor is the fact that we are planting the grapes in the same geology. If you look at the southeast England particularly, there is this rich brown soil and everything below it is brilliant white chalk. So that goes and hits the white cliffs of Dover and then goes under the English Channel in a Dover cliffs, calcium carbonate mountains cliffs came up during one of the tectonic events, bottom of the ocean coming up. The next place it turns up is Champagne. So we have the same geology in parts of southeastern England as the Champagne region in France. So we have got the same grape varieties, the same soil and the same production method. We're not at the same level of expertise, but as the market grows, more and more wine talent is coming into the UK. British Airways is the only airline in the world to have a full-time master of wine on board. Tim is adding some sparkle into their business and first-class experience with a rotation of all British bubbles. Even in India, Indian vineyards are, winemakers are growing in number, and they're all having wine experts, winemakers from Italy, France, and so on and so forth. Passengers in British Airways business class can enjoy 4 British sparkling wines from 4 different houses: Digby Fine English, Winston Estate, Simpsons, and Balfour. While first class, or maybe it's pronounced Balfour, while first class passengers can sip glasses from England's Hattingley Estate, must be more expensive. Hampshire-based Balfour's Rosé de Noir is a British Airways exclusive, a light sparkling made from red grapes made exclusively for the airline. Tim weighed in on the trials, tasting the wine mid-flight to ensure the final version would work well at a variety of altitudes. Our ability to create these wines and shine a light on local wines is a reflection of where British sparkling wine is, he says, referring to how producers are finally meeting the demands. And here are some recommended vineyards to explore: Simpsons Wine Estate in Kent, Gusbourne Estate in Ashford, Chapel Down in Kent, Langham Wine Estate in Dorchester, Sandbridge Barton in Devon. So finally coming closer, for context, the UK has a rich history of winemaking. Vines have been grown in England since the Roman times for winemaking, explains Cian Roberts, for the founder of Loving Welsh Food, who organizes entertaining local tours across Wales, full of delicacies, anecdotes, and gorgeous sights. With the First World War, however, the need for crops and food took priority over wine production, thus decimating an industry that was already beleaguered due to crop epidemics and infestations. So it's not the Little Ice Age, it was the First World War that shifted the production. Cian, who has been organizing tours for more than a decade, tells me that over the years, interest in vineyard tours has been growing. Tourists from bigger wine drinking countries such as France and Italy are curious to taste Welsh wines, but it's also local tourists who are surprised to discover Wales as a wine producing region. Nashik in Maharashtra, which is very close to Mumbai, for example, gets massive tourist population visiting to do wine tasting, and they have made a big show out of it with good food and so on. Gusbourne Estate in Ashford is shown here, always a nice sight to see vineyards. So some private efforts then. As per Tommy Grimshaw, head winemaker at Langham Wine Estate in Dorchester, the best way to get people to appreciate and understand our wines is through tastings. In 2020, Langham won the prestigious IWSC trophy for Sparkling Wine Producer of the Year. Typically, when you go for tasting, you taste a bunch of them, you like something or not, you always tend to buy some bottles, and you tend to then look for the same brand also when you go back to your place, so the sales go up quite a bit. While Tommy notes that climate change has helped swing some bubbly success their way, he's conscious of it too. As local winemakers, we need to be careful to not accelerate climate change with irresponsible practices. Langham is now focusing its efforts on building a new winery that will be entirely powered by solar panels, and is experimenting with techniques to reuse sparkling wine bottles to help cut down the estate's carbon footprint. So they are happy if the French territories become unsuitable for wine, but they want them to remain suitable in the UK. So keep climate change at a level where wine can be produced in the UK. I'm just joking. While challenges such as high land and production costs remain, Tommy says that all the attention the local wine industry has received in the recent past is helping. This year they have received applicants from India, South Africa and parts of Europe. The more diverse our expertise is, the richer the industry becomes, he explains. English wines are moving now from a novelty to a force to reckon with. But we don't want people to buy our wines just because it's English, but because it's simply really good wine and not just a novelty. Okay, so I will leave it here. It's an interesting topic related to climate change and related to wines, which I love, and I'm sure many of you love as well. But this is also critical business on climate services, how to help wine industries manage their climate risk on a day-to-day basis, season-to-season basis, at multi-year time scale, but also strategize for the future. So this is serious business. One of the best things we can do as climate scientists to also motivate vineyards to participate in climate mitigation and adaptation, right? So see you in the next topic.